Today I'm going to show you guys how to write a death metal song. What's up everybody, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Taylor and I was approached by Modern Metal Songwriter to make a video, but they didn't want me to make a video reviewing one of their products or anything like that. What they actually asked me to do was take you guys through my songwriting process, since that's kind of Modern Metal Songwriter. Makes sense, right? Like that's what they do, that's what their website's about. But what they asked me to do was take you through my songwriting process, since I write so many songs and demos for this channel, and I usually have to do it in a pretty short amount of time, so I've gotten sort of efficient at it. So what we're gonna do here today is we're gonna start from scratch. I'm gonna write a demo song and show you guys how I do it and sort of explain my processes, and hopefully that helps you guys out with your own creativity output and writing your own demo songs. The first thing in my signal chain is this Deviant Guitars Grimoire. It has an EMG 81 and an 85 in it. That is plugged directly into my Apollo Twin Duo over here. Now when I write music, the way that I like to do this is I like to capture the direct input out of my guitar, because a lot of times when I'm writing these demo songs, I don't necessarily know what I'm writing them for. So if I'm making a video on like an amp or a modeler or something like that, it gives me the flexibility to reamp that guitar signal for that particular video. So that's why I like capturing the DI directly from my guitar when I record. I am monitoring myself with a plugin. The plugin that I'm using is the Clairvoyant plugin from Modern Metal Songwriter. This thing has a ton of tools in it. It's like a standalone suite, you know. We have compressors, we have pitch shifters, we have a post EQ, we have a cab IR loader, of course the amp section, and we have a stomp section with overdrive, fuzz, lo-fi, delay, reverb, pretty much all the bases you could want for writing this kind of music, I feel like. So that's what we're gonna be using to monitor ourselves. Here's the guitar tone. And for this video, I'm going to be using Reaper. Now, none of the things that I go over in this video, whether it's my audio interface, my guitar, Reaper, whatever, are set in stone. You can apply these to whatever your tools are. These just happen to be the tools that I use. So everything I go over will translate, whether you're using Cubase or Sonar. Is Sonar a thing anymore? I don't know, but it'll translate. I'm talking more about concepts and ideas here rather than specific tools, if that makes sense. Now, something that I highly recommend doing that will streamline your whole process is setting up a template. And the way this template works is I have my drums up here. I have a separate guitar track for specifically recording. And then I have my bass down at the bottom, split bass, low and high. I will go over all of this stuff through the video, but just to give you an idea, that's how it's all set up. And it works a little bit differently in every program, but in Reaper, the way it goes is when you get all of these tracks set up and you get all of your, you know, effects and stuff loaded on your tracks, you go into File here and you go into Project Templates and you save project as template. And then that way, when you want to write a song, you don't have to go through setting up all those tracks again. I want to write something kind of fast today. Let's change the BPM. Let's go like 210. Okay, so there's a few different ways that you can go about doing this when you get started. You could just play to a metronome and, you know, riff out and come up with an idea that way. Or maybe you already have a riff that you want to turn into a song. Those are all great ways to start. You can also drag in some MIDI grooves or program drums first. Sometimes that's helpful if you're kind of stuck, you don't have any riffs. But what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna riff out to this metronome for a minute and see if I can come up with something cool. Okay, that's kind of cool. And when you're trying to come up with riff ideas, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't try to make it perfect. Just come up with something. We can always come back and refine this later. The most important thing is just to get the juices flowing and get the riffs flowing, coming out. You know what I'm saying? A couple things that I will say though, when it comes to writing death metal that I like to do is sometimes I will get out like chord charts and I will look up harmonic minor chords. Sometimes that works really well if you're having a hard time coming up with a riff. Like maybe make a chord that's a little bit dissonant. And then just move it around and see, you know, if anything clicks. I think the biggest part about writing the initial riff is just writing something that sounds kind of cool and that you are enjoying playing. We'll stick with that for now. And then we're going to trim that. We're going to bring it here. Now, the reason that I like to do this on a separate track is so I don't have to jump around arming tracks. I just have this one track that's armed, and that way I can like just quickly record and get things out. So we'll split that. We'll trim it so it's on the grid here. Let's try recording a second guitar take of that. We'll move this one up, trim the end of it. Okay, you can hear it's not perfect because when it loops back around, there's like a little bit of a gap. Don't worry about that. We'll come back and fix that later. We just want to get some riffs out right now. So what should it do after that? So, you know, the chords I'm using here are We could do something muted like that. That might be kind of cool. Let's try that. And sometimes if you're having a really hard time with a particular part or something that you have in your head, you're having a hard time playing it, you know, it's okay to just like piece it up and just do it part by part and copy and paste. In my opinion, you should use all these tools. We're just writing and assembling a song right now. You know, the goal is to get a finished product here. Cool thing is, if you're having a hard time playing it and you do it that way, when you go back and learn the song, you will actually become a better player for doing it. We'll keep that, that's fine for now. We'll come back and revise it later. I just would like to get like 3 or 4 guitar riffs down, and then we'll start assembling them. And you can see how fast I'm going through this. I'm not trying to make anything perfect. I'm just trying to get some riffs down. We're gonna try and play back to this. Again, you know, I only need like the first half of that. I can loop that. It will make sense why I'm doing this a little bit later when we go back and like change and revise the guitar riffs, maybe add harmonies and stuff. You know, we're gonna replace these tracks anyways. And then maybe next we'll go into something a little bit more like tremolo picky, you know, something like not necessarily slowed down, but kind of laid back on the drums with lots of heavy double bass. And again, these riffs do not have to be perfect. Don't be hard on yourself when you're doing this. We're just trying to give ourselves some scaffolding that we will build off of, and then we will go back and revise things and start stripping things away. Every song that I've written, like in my band or otherwise, I started this way. Okay, now we're gonna go into the drums here. And for me, I think that the easiest tool to write drums with is EZdrummer 3. I really like this for a lot of reasons, but basically you can purchase expansions from them or even just MIDI packs. And what the MIDI packs have are just countless grooves, which are just like little sections of drumming that you can use to your songs, and they have these classified by different genres. So I have a lot of the EZX metal packs, like you can see here on the side, and this just makes the process so much easier. I used to spend so much time sitting there and dialing in every single MIDI note for the drums that I wanted, and you know, at the end of the day, like the drums weren't really that great. They were all at full velocity, so they sounded pretty fake, and what I like about this is that you can actually get real drum performances from world-class drummers in world-class studios. So, you know, why wouldn't you do that? It sounds way better than me programming MIDI notes. So we're just gonna loop this first part right here. And then we're just gonna scroll through these different grooves that I have. Let's just, let's go, what sounds cool? Metal Machine sounds pretty sick. I hear this being kind of like a double kick type part. Let's go into the play style and we'll go into double kick, and we'll just listen through, and if I like it, I will star it, and then we can go back and choose some beats. I think this one's actually almost perfect. I don't need to go through these, but if I did, you know, you can just quickly click on the star and it will show you your favorites. But I think this one almost matches this part like perfectly. Okay, so I will need to edit the bass drum here a little bit. I'm gonna open the MIDI, show you exactly what I'm doing here. This is the bass drum note, C2. Okay, so now all I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna add more double kick on this part. So it goes. Something like that. And make those 16th notes. Okay, I like that. So now what we're gonna do is we're just going to split this part off here, and we'll copy that, we'll paste it down here, and then we'll replace this other section on this part. And then maybe just to switch it up, we want a different fill at the end here. Let's go back into our grooves and let's look at the fills. And I can tell just by looking at like the MIDI notes on these, what I'm actually looking for. And I want something like this. And I'm going to, I don't want this part of it, I just want the very end of it. Let's go like that. Let's hear that. Now that one actually doesn't work. Maybe go. That's actually really cool. Let's do this one. So this one's actually much longer, replaces this whole end section. Now, trying to program that would have taken me forever, and I probably wouldn't have come up with something that cool. So that's why I really like using EZdrummer in my process. It just makes everything a lot easier, and I think it gives me better results in the long run. So there you go. Let's keep going here. Probably double kick again. Let's get rid of the fills. Grab this guy. I think this guy's fine. Now we're going to need to copy and paste this riff because it's not long enough. This riff is kind of sloppy. So let's just redo this. And now that we have a drum track here, it might make it a little bit easier. Okay, so basically, and again, you know, I would recommend using these tools to your advantage, copy, paste, loop, whatever you have to do. You can learn these songs later as you get them constructed and you go back and you refine them. Don't get too hung up on making it perfect right now. That's not what this is about. Let's actually play through this twice. That means we're gonna have to move this part down. We're gonna come back to this. We're gonna add some other guitar on top of that, but let's just finish these drums first. And then maybe like, let's make the second time it goes through, we'll change up the drum pattern. Just go full on bass drum assault at the end of that. So. Okay, we're gonna need some sort of fill here, but we will come back to that in a second. So it goes. Actually, that one sounds pretty good. Let's just do that. Look at that. Okay, we're gonna need a fill for that part, so let's go into our fills here, and we can... This might be a little bit crazy, but let's see. I'm just gonna drag this one in, and we're going to go to the end here. 3, 4, 6, maybe? Oh, it's a little bit weird. Maybe, maybe just the end of this one would be okay. Let's try this. Try like the last 4 bars of this guy. That works. Okay, so. Okay, so now we were gonna look for a double bass part that's kind of like slow, laid back with the hands. So let's go back to the double kick here. We will loop this. Okay, I'm not finding exactly what I'm looking for. And once you have a large enough library of drum grooves, they can be a lot to go through. So if you have something specific in mind, one of the cool things you can do is you can go tap to find. Let's go to 16. So now we should have stuff that matches that a little bit more. So let's check this out here. So this is a little bit short here. Let's just cut this in half and then go something like that. We'll have it repeat right there. And then maybe we'll put the fill back in. That's kind of cool, actually. Now we actually have, like, you know, the beginning of a song constructed here. Let's just go back and listen to it. I feel like the second time around, we should probably throw in some blast beats, because what's a good death metal song without any blast beats? Okay, so we're gonna go into the playstyle here. We're gonna go blast beat. Let's do it again. And right away, the first one I think is a good fit. So let's just use the first one. Okay, cool. Let's go back to listening to the song. Okay, we need to change up the drums. Maybe let's just explore some different things here, and we'll see what fits. So play this back. Again, I kind of like the first groove that we came across. Let's just use that. I think that sounds good. And they can almost go even back into this, like, one more time. So let's do that. Okay, so if I was just making a demo for YouTube or something like that, I think that this would be good. This is like a good length for like a shootout or whatever. But if I was making this into a full song, I would just keep repeating this process until I had, you know, enough material to comprise a full 3.5 minute song or whatever. The next thing I want to do here is I want to revise some of the guitar parts a little bit and make them a little bit more interesting and show you what my process is like for that. Okay, let's go back through these riffs and see which ones we can revise. Let's add something here different at the end. Something like that. See if that works. Okay, and let's record like a harmony for that. I think that that really helps this riff out a lot, not sound so repetitive. Let's do that. We'll paste that in there. Okay, and I was gonna add an extra guitar thing in here. Let's just duplicate one of these guitar tracks, and we will make this our center track. I just wanted like something kind of droney and a little bit atmospheric here with the guitar, so let's just loop this and see if I can come up with something. Just really simple and to the point. You know what I mean? We don't need to make this kind of crazy and complicated. And then I'm gonna go in here to the 𝗦𝗣𝗘𝗏 plugin that is on all the guitars, and we're going to the effects here. Let's do a lo-fi delay and reverb on this. Very, very quickly, that is the exact vibe I was going for, so that's kind of cool that I could just do it that easily. Now, we can open up our compressor here a little bit and throw on a little bit of compression. Just getting the volume difference in between those notes a little bit more under control. And let's move on here. This would definitely be a harmony, in my opinion, right here, so let's do that. And a lot of the times with the harmonies in death metal, all I'm doing is like playing the third here. So if the position of this riff is like on 1, then I'll move it up to 4. So it'd be like this. And it sounds pretty evil, watch. And we can keep going through this process to our heart's content. We can make these riffs as complicated as we want them to be. And for the sake of YouTube demos, I usually stop around here. I'm not trying to get people to like listen to the music and think about how cool the riffs are. What I'm trying to do with my demos and stuff is demonstrate like a piece of gear and listen to the differences between those pieces of gear, especially in the case of a shootout or something like that. So, you know, it's not so much about the riffing when I'm doing the demos for YouTube. But if you're writing this song for your band or something like that, you could just keep going through this process until you come up with the ultimate best death metal song ever written. The next thing we're gonna need to do is we need to record bass. So let's do that. Okay, I have my bass here. I'm actually gonna open up the Clairvoyant plugin that I'm monitoring myself with, and let's just put this on the mid channel. Pretty good bass tone for recording, honestly. I have the bass separated into 2 bass tracks. These are identical, so I'm going to arm both of them. The reason that I have the bass separated this way is I like processing the high end of the bass and the low end of the bass separately. I'll go over that a little bit more at the end here when I talk a little bit about the mixing. Right now, we're just recording the same track twice. And I'm a terrible bass player, by the way, just so you know. So most of my bass playing is just like root notes, but yeah, let's do it. And a lot of times with the bass, I will just get like one good take in there and loop it, since this is not my instrument. And you know, if you're in a band or whatever, and you were just trying to track songs and you just wanted some bass in there for filler, I would recommend you do the same. Don't spend too much time on bass. There's better use of your time than recording an instrument you don't play. Copy, we're gonna paste that. And I'm just gonna get one take of this since it just repeats. Boom, easy peasy. We're gonna copy and paste that. Did a little bit better. Okay, now on tremolo parts, you can tremolo on the bass. I find it a lot better most of the time to stick with the drums in these situations, what the drums are doing, so let's just listen. Okay, so we're gonna go 16th notes, 8th notes, 16th notes with the drums. And there you have it. The bass is done. Next, let's move on to the mixing and adding some like post-production elements to just really, you know, make the song pop. So the last thing we're gonna do here before we go over all the mixing is I'm gonna show you some of these cool production tools that Modern Metal Songwriter has. It's called the Metal Essentials Post-Production Pack, and this is what it looks like. You have atmosphere in here, so these are just like different sounds that you can add. This one's kind of cool. Check this out, Graveyard. And everything is categorized in like pitch. So, you know, make sure you're using the correct pitch for your song. Be helpful. Let's see what else we have here. We have E-drums. So, you know, if you need samples, there's samples in here. You know, if you want to put that into like a sequencer and have some, you know, electronic drum breaks or something like that, you can do that. We have explosions in here. That one's actually pretty cool. Let's use this one. So I'll just drag that in to the DAW here. What else do we have in here that we could use? We have some impacts. Reverse textures, snare bombs, and let's actually add in a sub drop as well. Dun. Yeah, because it's a pull off. Okay. So we will use these two elements in here. Now I want let's just call this track production. Okay, so now that we have these things drug in there, let's make sure we're grabbing all the stuff. I'm going to highlight everything and give myself some space at the beginning of the song to work with, and then drag this cavern thing in there. And then we'll drag everything to right there. I'm actually going to shift this a little bit so that hit is exactly right there. Let's add this sub drop in on this part. Just to emphasize that a little bit. And the sub hit's gonna be really hard to hear unless you're using like headphones or you have a subwoofer or studio monitors or something like that. But yeah, so now I don't have a bass in my way anymore. I can focus a little bit on the production elements of this. I'm going to leave the drums just as they are because I think it's good for a demo. So I'm just gonna solo the drums first. I'm gonna put my mixer over here so you guys can kind of see everything that's going on. I'm just watching my master channel here. I'm gonna mix the drums to a level that gives me a lot of headroom. What I mean by headroom is a lot of distance away from it peaking. You can see everything staying in the green there, that's probably good. Next we're going to add in the bass, and the way that I have this bass set up, without making this overly complicated, I have the bass separated into two tracks like we talked about earlier. The high track, here's the plugin that I'm using for the bass, and then I have in the EQ, a high pass filter around 200 Hertz, so this is what you hear from the high end of the bass. And then on the low track, I have the same bass plugin going on, set a little bit differently. I actually like this clean like that. And then I have the same EQ plugin, but I'm doing a low pass around 144 Hertz. And then one of the bands at 80 Hertz has compression going on, and that is sidechained to the bass drum. And the reason for that is it just helps get the low end under control and makes room for both instruments that occupy that space. A lot of times, if you don't do this, you know, your low end can be kind of all over the place. So let me show you how to do that. It's going to vary depending on the program and the plugin you're using, but the way you do it here is we're gonna go into the drums. And like you can see here, I have a separate track called bass drum sample. So if I go into my mixer here, I'm gonna set the output on the bass drum to output 3 and 4. And then I'm gonna open up the send and receives on the MIDI drums, send to track 2, which is that bass drum track that I just talked about. And I'm sending the audio 3 and 4 to input 1 and 2 on the new track. So what that's gonna do, if I solo this track, I've now isolated just the bass drum. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down to our bass low end. We're gonna look at the send and receives. I'm receiving from that bass drum track the audio 1, 2, the main output, into channels 3 and 4 on the bass low track. So now that I have that set up, I can actually sidechain this compressor here. So you can see it reacting to the bass drum. So basically the way this works in Reaper is if you open your plugin pin connector over here, you can see 3 and 4 are set to sidechain left and right. And then in Nova, this is a free EQ plugin, by the way. In Nova, you just select this, you turn the threshold on, which will give you compression. Let's set it a little bit high like that. We'll do an infinite ratio, and we want it to release as quickly as it possibly will, which is 10 milliseconds, and we want the attack to be as quick as possible because we just want every kick to cut through the low end of the bass. And then from there, up on the top right here, you're going to be able to tell it, do you want an internal sidechain, which is just going to, you know, react to the bass, an external sidechain, which is gonna act to those pin connections that we did earlier, the 3 and the 4, which is what we want. So now when we listen to these together, you can hear the bass drum cutting through the low end of the bass a little bit. It's just a little thing, but it really does make your mixes a little bit tighter. I don't want to spend too much time on the mixing here, but I felt like that was important to explain. From here, what we're gonna do, we're gonna just solo the drums and the bass. And I find a lot of times I have to balance the high and the low end. So I have the high end turned down a little bit in this case, about 5 dB. And then I'm gonna turn the bass all the way down and I'm gonna bring it in until I think it sounds level. Right about there is fine. And now I'm going to take the solo off and bring the guitars back in. And we need to mix these guitars a little bit. So let's open the Clairvoyant plugin, and I'm gonna mute the right guitar. We're just gonna focus on the left guitar for right now. And you can see I just left this flat. Let's just dial this in. And this is one of the things I really like about Clairvoyant. It's very easy to dial in. Now, something else we can do here to really help us out is get the low end of the guitar under control, so that way it's not interfering with like the mids or the top end of the bass. So let's open this compressor up here and we'll turn it on. And you can see it's reacting to sort of like the chugginess of the guitar. Actually, let's go to a... And it's just gonna even out the guitar and just make it a little bit easier to mix. So let's keep that on there. The other thing I wanna do here is let's go into the cab section. It's such a big part of your guitar sound. Now, the stock IRs in this program sound great, but they actually do have a declassified IR pack with some other stuff in here that I think is pretty cool. Let's go through these. I mean, there's a ton of them in here, holy cow. I really like this one. Where was it? The 6 balance. I think that one sounds really good. And then let's go into the browse over here and we'll load up another one. We're gonna get something that has a little bit more low end. So maybe the spoon of sauce sound pretty good. And let's blend these together. I think that sounds pretty good. Now I'm actually going to go into the right track and delete that plugin and then drag and drop this into the right guitar track. And that way I have the same tone on both channels. So let's listen to that now. Okay, sounds pretty good. They're pretty loud. So the way that I have this set up here is you can see that I have a guitar bus with all the guitars on it. So I can actually just control the volume of all the guitars at the same time. Our bass drum is a little bit loud. Just gotta turn the bass down a little bit. These are peaking a little, so I'm gonna have to turn them down as well. The amplifier here, and we'll turn that level down. And then I'm gonna do the same thing that I kind of did with the bass here, and I'm gonna bring it up to taste. Okay, and then I just balance everything from here. I think that sounds pretty good. Now we're gonna turn the magic on. We're gonna go into our master bus here. I'm gonna enable these. We will just go through them one at a time and I'll show you what they do. The first thing that I have here on my master bus is something called 𝗦𝗘𝗏𝗏. This is like an active EQ. It reacts in real time and it will push down on harsh frequencies or lift up frequencies that are buried in your mix. And so it just kind of brightens everything. If you notice here, and just makes everything sound a little bit more balanced. The next thing I have here is an SSL compressor from Waves. The way I like to set this up is I put my attack at 10 milliseconds and my release at 0.1 seconds, and then I set my threshold until I'm hitting about 4 decibels of reduction. Maybe like right in there. And then I set my makeup to about 3.5 decibels. I have this on analog mode. The ratio is at 4. The change is very subtle, but it does help glue everything together. And then I have a UAD oxide tape plugin here, and what this is going to do is add a little bit of distortion to the master bus. And then the last one here is the Master Desk plugin. I use this as my limiter, and that will make it so your mixes are as loud as any other commercial mixes out there. Okay, so now that we have everything mixed, the only thing to do is listen back to it. So there you have it. That is how I go about producing demos for this channel. Shout out to Modern Metal Songwriter for sponsoring this video. If you liked it, make sure to hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.